Every truck of laundry detergent that rolled into a European supermarket between 2002 and 2005 cost more than it should have. 315 million euros in fines. 3 manufacturers. And an environmental initiative designed to save the planet, weaponized to fix prices across 8 countries. Walk into any supermarket in Europe, and the detergent aisle presents what appears to be fierce competition. Ariel against Persil. Omo against Surf. Bright packaging, bold claims, aggressive promotions. Consumers in Belgium, France, Germany, Greece, Italy, the Netherlands, Portugal, and Spain trusted these brands because they appeared to be fighting for every sale. The reality was the opposite. Behind the shelves, the 3 companies that made nearly every product on that aisle were meeting in secret, coordinating prices and ensuring that no matter which brand a family chose, they paid more than a competitive market would have charged. Procter Gamble, Henkel, and Unilever together controlled approximately 2/3 of the heavy-duty laundry detergent market across those 8 countries. Their brands were household names. Ariel, Tide, Bold, Daz, and Fairy belonged to Procter Gamble. Persil, Perwoll, Spee, and Weißer belonged to Henkel. Omo, Surf, and Skip belonged to Unilever. Consumers believed they were choosing between competitors. They were choosing between co-conspirators. The mechanism was elegant in its cynicism. In the early 2000s, the Association Internationale de la Savonnerie, known as AISE, launched an environmental initiative encouraging detergent manufacturers to reduce packaging and lower product dosage. The stated goal was sustainability. Smaller boxes, concentrated formulas, less waste. The 3 companies agreed to participate, but their private discussions went far beyond environmental targets. They called their coordination meetings the Clean Team. The name was meant to suggest compliance and transparency. What happened inside those meetings was neither. Beginning on the 7th of January 2002, representatives from all 3 companies used the Clean Team meetings to agree that none of them would exploit the packaging reductions to gain competitive advantage. They agreed to stabilize market shares. They agreed to maintain prices even as product quantities shrank. A box of detergent that once contained enough powder for 40 washes now contained enough for 30. The price stayed the same. The price per wash went up. The consumer paid more for less. And all 3 companies pretended this was an environmental achievement. This decision seemed small at the time. It was not. The coordination continued quietly for more than 3 years. The companies stabilized market positions, shared pricing intentions, and ensured that the environmental initiative became a vehicle for collective profit rather than consumer benefit. Every household doing laundry in 8 European countries was paying an estimated 6.7 to 6.9% more than they would have in a genuinely competitive market. Academic studies later calculated the total consumer damage at approximately 315 million euros. But the cartel had a structural vulnerability that its members either ignored or underestimated. It required ongoing trust between 3 massive corporations, each with thousands of employees, complex compliance programs, and internal audit functions. The more people who knew, the greater the risk that someone would corrupt. But Henkel had a problem, and it was about to become Europe's problem. In 2008, during a routine internal compliance audit, someone inside Henkel discovered evidence of the coordination. The details of who found what remain sealed in confidential files. But the discovery forced Henkel's leadership to confront an uncomfortable reality. They were participating in an arrangement that was clearly illegal under Article 101 of the Treaty on the Functioning of the European Union. They could stay silent and hope nobody else talked, or they could confess. On the 13th of May 2008, a Henkel representative walked into the offices of the Directorate General for Competition in Brussels and filed an immunity application under the European Commission's leniency program. The application revealed everything. The Clean Team meetings, the pricing coordination, the abuse of the environmental initiative. Henkel provided documentary evidence, internal communications, and a full confession. In exchange, Henkel would pay nothing. Full immunity, 0 fine. The company that helped run the cartel for 3 years walked away without penalty because it was first through the door. But the Commission's investigation was only beginning. In June of 2008, DG Competition launched unannounced inspections at Procter Gamble and Unilever offices across Europe. Investigators arrived at 9 in the morning, carrying inspection decisions signed by the Commission. They presented identification, explained the scope of the inspection, and began securing evidence. Hard drives were forensically imaged. Emails were searched using keyword analysis through specialist software. Meeting notes and internal documents were catalogued and copied. The timing of what happened next was almost too perfect. Procter & Gamble applied for leniency on the 8th of September 2008, just 4 months after Henkel's confession. They received a 50% reduction in their eventual fine. Unilever followed on the 2nd of October 2009 and received a 25% reduction. Both companies also received an additional 10% reduction for agreeing to settle the case, acknowledging their liability in formal submissions filed in January 2011. The race to confess had become a race to minimize punishment. If you find these corporate investigations as revealing as I do, consider subscribing. I publish a new case every week. On the 13th of April 2011, Commissioner Joaquin Almunia stood in the press room of the Berlaymont building in Brussels and announced the fines. Procter Gamble would pay €211.2 million. Unilever would pay €104 million. Henkel would pay nothing. The total came to €315.2 million. Almunia's statement was direct. The companies used an environmental initiative to agree on market share and to agree on not reducing prices even if the packages were smaller. He added that companies should expect the Commission to pursue a relentless fight against cartels, which extract higher prices from consumers than if companies compete fairly and on the merits. The corporate responses were carefully measured. A Procter & Gamble spokesman named Paul Fox stated that it was their policy to comply with the letter and spirit of all laws everywhere they did business. Unilever said the fine fell below provisions already made in the company's 2010 results, which, looking back, was either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. To publicly acknowledge that you budgeted for a cartel fine before it was even announced suggests a level of institutional awareness that raises its own questions. There were no appeals. The settlement procedure required the companies to acknowledge liability and accept the Commission's findings. That acknowledgement precluded judicial review. The case closed without ever reaching the General Court or the Court of Justice of the European Union. All fines were paid, but the consequences extended beyond the penalty itself. The case contributed to momentum for the European Union's Antitrust Damages Directive, adopted in 2014. That directive introduced a rebuttable presumption that cartels cause harm, improved evidence disclosure rules for victims seeking compensation, and clarified joint and several liability for companies found to have colluded. It made follow-on damages claims substantially easier to pursue across all member states. The Detergents cartel was not the largest fine in European competition history. The trucks cartel, which I covered previously, resulted in penalties exceeding €3.8 billion. The interest rate derivatives case topped €1.4 billion. By those standards, $315 million looks modest, but scale is not the point. The detergents case matters because it exposed a specific vulnerability in consumer markets. These were not obscure industrial products traded between corporations. These were household goods purchased by tens of millions of families every week. The brands involved were trusted precisely because they appeared to compete. That appearance was manufactured. The cartel also demonstrated how legitimate industry cooperation can become a vehicle for collusion. The AISE environmental initiative was real. The sustainability goals were genuine. But the companies exploited that framework to pursue private coordination that had nothing to do with environmental protection. The clean team meetings were dirty. Today, the fines are paid, the case is closed, and the reforms it helped trigger are embedded in European law. Procter & Gamble, Unilever, and Henkel remain the dominant players in the European laundry detergent market. Their brands still fill the same supermarket shelves in the same 8 countries, competing for attention. Consumers still choose between them every week, trusting that the competition they see is real. The next case I am covering involves a company that made your detergent seem cheap by comparison. A single product, sold to every government in Europe, with a pricing structure that nobody questioned for over a decade. That investigation is still ongoing. The purple flamingo dances quiet.